Chapter 40. No One, Point of View. 1 year later.
Veronica! Come on! You're late!
Noah called out as Veronica put on her shoes.
Coming!
Veronica shouted back as she took the red rose bouquet and ran out of her room.
You look beautiful, Veronica.
Vickis told as she smiled and said a thank you.
Now, come on. We can't be late for the ceremony, can we?
Vickis said as the two shouted a no.
Princess Veronica!
You forgot to drink your medicine. Mrs. Galena came running out of the kitchen. Veronica crunched her face and ran behind Noah while glaring at the dark pink liquid.
Beryl, why are you not drinking it?
Noah asked, confused at her behavior.
It tastes even more terrible now,
she said, pouting.
I do smell strong magic in it. Are you sure that is safe?
Vickis suddenly said, as he sensed something off about the medicine. I am sorry, Sir Vickis, but I have been giving her this medicine since she is a baby. I have just increased the dose. As she ages, her body is capable of rejecting the medicine. So I have to keep making it stronger, Mrs. Galena said, in all professionalism. Vickis could only nod and walk out with both the kids. He can't question the life of the princess, as long as it doesn't affect the terrain negatively. It was one of the rules and conditions formulated. Once they reached the palace, they met with Hayla.
Veronica, you should come with me. Noah, go with Vickis. Daddy will be waiting for you,
Hayla said, before the girls and boys parted their way.
Mother Arya!
Veronica shouted, as she saw Noah's mother.
You look beautiful,
she complimented as she took in Ariana's appearance. A pure white velvet diamond embroidered bodice with a beautiful red skirt. Her beauty was magnified with a beautiful big diamond crown and a back veil. Thank you. You look beautiful as well, princess, she complimented the red velvet dress of the little girl.
Final touch,
Hayla announced as she brought a large red sheer cloth. Hayla used her magic, making the cloth fly from her hands over Ariana's head. The sheer fell over the crown and covered her face down till her collarbone. Ariana was a bit surprised by the covering over the face. The wizard tradition marriage is different from hers. Here she was to wear something red, but Hayla managed to find a dress that also had white, so it follows some of Ariana's tradition. She was to cover herself with a sheer ancient veil passed on by all queens. The marriage here was bonded and sealed by blood, but they wanted to make it a mixed wedding. So they inserted the method of exchanging vows and rings.
It's almost time,
one of the maids shouted, barging in.
All right, ladies, let's do this.
Hayla fist-pumped the air, and the rest followed suit.
Are you all right, Mother Arya?
Veronica asked, worried about Mother Arya taking deep breaths. I'm all right, baby girl. Just a little tense, Ariana replied as she bends to the girl's level.
Don't be. Everything will be working out great,
Veronica chirped as the elder smiled. She was happy they decided to take Veronica under their protection. She was nothing but a sweetheart who walks around spreading darkness. She is living proof that breaks the stereotype thought that dark wizards are bad and cruel.
Let's go,
Hayla said, as Ariana nodded. The wedding is taking place outside near a waterfall. The altar was decorated with a mix of red roses and vivaria, a beautiful red obsidian flower with glowing ends in the petal. Other than that, the altar was white. The tune started to play in the background as Ariana chuckled. You Are the Reason by Calum Scott. Noah walked to them. He smiled at Veronica before extending his hand to his mother. She smiled as she took his son's hand into her before kissing his head. Veronica walked down the aisle as she threw red and white petals on her way. Reaching the end, she gave the basket to Vickis before walking to her reserved seat in the front. Ariana took a deep breath before walking out of the invisible shield with her son. She slowly walked down the aisle to the altar. Alistair still couldn't believe this was happening. Everything felt like a dream to him. He was finally marrying the woman he loves. He was finally having the real family he dreamed for years. He watched with tearful eyes as his love and son walked close to him. They both smiled at each other before looking at him. Today, he is going to become the happiest in the world. Reaching the altar, Ariana kissed her son on the forehead. He smiled and kissed her back before giving his father a thumb up. He then joins Vicus, who was standing behind Alistair.
Ariana,
Alistair started taking hold of her hand. Alistair, she said, giving him a shy smile.
Ariana Sue Davis. Today, standing here in witness to all Obsidian, I, Alistair Regmore, ask your permission to start the ceremony.
Alistair said, as per his tradition. I, Ariana Sue Davis, accept your permission to proceed with the ceremony, Ariana said, the same words she practiced before the wedding. Alistair smiled at her before taking the knife that was placed in the table in front of him. He looked at her as he cut his palm before pouring the blood onto the binding cup.
Do you accept to be my queen, my love, the one who will forever share my happiness and pain?
Alistair asked as he handed the knife to her. I do, Ariana said immediately without hesitation. She cut her palm and winced at the pain. She put her bloodied hand above the cup, Alistair's blood mixing with her. He then took her hand into his, both of them wincing at the pain. Alistair's eye glowed blue as he chanted the binding words. The pain grew more and more, but they knew they shouldn't let go.
It's almost over.
A voice came in her head as her eyes widened. She looked at Alistair with wide eyes as he smiled. Did I just hear his voice? Ariana thought.
Yes, we can talk through our bond.
Alistair's voice once again filled her mind. The blood in the cup began to glow, and so did their hands. Ariana watched in shock as their blood color changed to gold. He removed his hand from her as a feeling of coldness filled her hand. She looked at the injured hand to see it fully healed. Alistair then took the cup from the table and showed it to the people.
Lord Vamir has accepted us as one.
Alistair shouted as the crowd cheered in happiness.
Now we begin the test for the place of the Queen of Obsidian Terrain.
Alistair said as Ariana gulped. Chapter 41. No one point of view.
Now we begin the test for the position of the Queen.
Alistair said as Ariana gulps and nodded.
Ariana Regmore, do you accept to stand in the Queen of Obsidian?
Alistair asked as he put the cup down and looked at her. His mind was jumping in joy as he used his last name to call her. I do, she said as he smiled and nodded.
Do you swear to protect them? Take them as your first priority? Tend to their needs?
He asked as she nodded. Yes, she said as he nodded before extending his hand.
Ariana, as per the tradition to be accepted as the Queen, the Lord has to give you the mark. For the same, please repeat after me.
Alistair said as she nodded. His eyes shined blue, and her arms suddenly felt warm at the heat he is producing. He started to loudly chant out the words, her repeating the same. She felt her body heat rise, and her powers growing more strongly. Her eyes shined gold as they went deeper into the chant. The air around them became strong as the wind blew fiercely around them. Ariana suddenly screamed at the immense pain. She felt her eyes fill with black spots before everything around her turns dark. Once she opens her eyes, she was on a familiar beachside. The violet sky, gold sand. She knew this place.
Ariana.
A familiar voice came from behind. Lord Vamir, Ariana said, bowing in respect.
Congratulations on your new life.
He wished, as she smiled and nodded.
I am sorry you have to meet me at your wedding, but I have something important to say to you.
He said, suddenly turning serious.
Ariana, what you face with King Xavier is nothing compared to your future. Darkness is rising. The third world is coming back.
He said, as Ariana looked at him in confusion and shock.
Ariana, prepare for the worst. The one who you will face is not like King Xavier. He has the power to destroy both Earth and terrain. What you are doing now is correct. Train everyone, and always keep an eye on the girl.
He said, as she nodded. Is Veronica dangerous? She asked, not believing a girl like her would betray the terrain.
Dangerous? Yes, but not in the way you think. Just keep her safe and in your eyesight. Train Noah. He is more powerful than you think. I won't be visiting you again, Ariana. I choose you as the Elder and Queen for a reason. Use the positions wisely.
He said, before she felt the world around her fade. She opened her eyes and she saw Alistair in front of her still chanting the spell. She also noticed that she was repeating after him. Suddenly, Ariana felt warmth around her. A light formed around her as Alistair moved backward. Her feet left the ground as she felt the light lift her to the air. A burning sensation made way to her body, especially in her neck. A mark formed on her neck as the crowd praised and cheered happily. It was a beautiful mark of a crown gold and silver, just like her husband's and son's. But the mark ended with a swirl on the right instead of the left.
I present to you, Queen of Obsidian Terrain.
Alistair shouted as cheers multiplied.
Did you really think giving your daughter under the protection of a white wizard will stop me, Xavier?
The man in the far end smirked as he looked at the girl who cheerfully clapped at the king's wedding ceremony.
Once I have your daughter under my control, I will be the most powerful and invincible. Both Earth and terrain will be under my rule. With her, I will cause chaos and destruction to anything and everything living. After all, she is the devil,
he said, before disappearing to his throne. Blurb. Alistair Regmore, the king of the White Wizards, the most powerful one to ever be born in the century. On his visit to the human world, he fell in love with an orphan human girl. Leaving his kingdom unprotected, he persuaded to woo the girl who conquered his heart. A week before their marriage, war broke between the White and the Dark Witches, and he was forced to leave her, erasing her memories of him. Ariana woke up one day alone in a house with no memory of her love except the name Alistair. All she had was a child she discovered she is carrying a week later. 7 years later, she was finally on her feet as a single mother working to support her charming son. What happens when she was kidnapped by a group of people who keeps referring to her as the king's bride? What happens when she finds herself in a world of magic and wizardry? Why does the king of wizard oddly look like her son?